Imagine being locked in a bathroom with five other women, barely enough space to breathe, left to sit silently for 91 days while a genocide erupted outside those walls. This is Left to Tell by Immaculée Ilibagiza. Immaculate's memoir about her ordeal surviving the Rwandan genocide. This book was published in 2006, 12 years after the 1994 Rwandan genocide that claimed millions of lives. She received the Christopher Award for affirming the highest values of human spirit. This is just a brief history of Rwanda, just to get some historical context. The three main tribes of Rwanda are the Hutus, Tutsis, and Twa. The main historical tensions are between the Tutsis and the Tutsis and the Hutus, as you can see on the left, the picture on the right. Throughout history, there had been a constant feud over power between the Tutsis and Hutus. Tension kept growing until a Tutsi rebel group invaded Rwanda trying to reunify the country. And then the Hutu president was killed in the midst of that. That was in 1990. And this sparked a mass genocide where Hutus were encouraged to kill Tutsis and try to wipe out the whole Tutsi tribe. Within 100 days, over 800,000 Tutsis were killed by Hutu extremists in the genocide. And although all of her Tutsi family and friends had died, Immaculée Ilibagiza survived. This is her story. Immaculée grew up in the beautiful small town of Mataba, Rwanda, as you can see in the top left corner. She had a very peaceful and normal childhood. In the bottom, you can see a picture of her family. She had three older brothers and two very loving parents. Her parents were very well respected in Mataba for their wisdom and charity. Immaculée grew up learning this wisdom, charity, and good morals, and grew up to be a very smart, kind woman. She received a scholarship to go to the University of Rwanda, where she completed her 4 years there at the top of her class. Growing up, Immaculée never really felt ethnic discrimination or tension between Tutsis and Hutus until her years at the university. There she felt extremely discriminated against. She felt separated and looked down on by her other classmates from her university. In 1994, she came home for a break when she received the news that the president had just died and the Hutus had begun to savagely kill all the Tutsis in sight. Being the only daughter in the family, her parents sent her to hide out in their village pastor's house. The main plot of this book revolves around the bathroom. Locked in a pastor's bathroom for months with minimal food and water, Immaculée and five other women hide noiselessly from hundreds of Hutu killers, searching to kill off every last Tutsi in the area. You couldn't move, no speaking, no noise, as to not risk revealing their hiding spot. A quote, "When morning broke, the birds in the pastor's shade tree began singing. I was jealous of them, thinking how lucky you are to have been born birds and have freedom. After all, look what we humans are doing to ourselves." I use this quote because it showed the state Immaculée was in and the physical and mental torture she had went through. She went into hiding at 115 pounds, and after 3 months of minimal food and no moving, she was at 65 pounds when she came out. Her muscles were deteriorating from the lack of movement and nutrition, and it took her years to get her strength back. But while the war waged on outside that 4x5 bathroom, the real battle that Immaculée realized was the battle of the mind, the internal conflict. Left alone with nothing but her own thoughts, Immaculée began to feel the mental agony of the situation. Hopelessness and helplessness took over Immaculée until she had felt utter despair and self-pity. She had to use all her mental control to stop herself from spiraling into despair and hatred. It was a constant battle of wanting to stay hopeful and positive and wanting to wallow in self-pity. The most prominent negative emotion that she could not stop herself from giving into was anger. She was angry at the Hutus and eventually gave into that rage until it overcame her. Her hatred for her Hutu neighbors and friends that betrayed her was so intense that she actually wished them death. Um, this brings us to our next theme, which is forgiveness. Immaculate voiced that the real internal conflict that she experienced was the difficulty of forgiveness. Immaculate knew and reflected that her parents would have never wanted her to hate the way she did. They would have wanted her to forgive them. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't. She couldn't forgive her Hutu foes for putting her through the torture she was experiencing then. She couldn't forgive them for killing her entire family. The conflict tore Immaculate apart during her 91 days in hiding. But what changed Immaculate's heart was a certain realization. Quote, their minds had been infected with the evil that spread across the country, but their souls weren't evil. Despite their atrocities, they were still human. This helped Immaculate get a completely new perspective about the Hutus that helped her forgive them. When the genocide was over and Immaculate was out of the bathroom, the war inside her mind still waged on. She was not at peace. She was grieving the loss of her family and friends and hating the people who killed them. To end the agonizing internal struggle, Immaculate decided to return to her home after years of avoiding it, trying to get some closure. And she forgave the man who killed her parents. I wept at the sight of his suffering. He was now the victim of his victims, destined to live in torment and regret. Immaculate felt pity for the man who had killed her parents and decided to love him, not hate him. It was the hardest thing she could ever do in life, but it was the only thing she could do to release the weight of these traumatizing experiences. These two themes led me to my thesis, which is Immaculée Ilibagiza's hardest torture to ever experience was the endurance of the mind, and her greatest achievement was conquering that battle and learning to forgive. Some stylistic choices that I noticed in the book was the tone. It definitely had an inspirational tone. Immaculée was trying to get her story out there to see how, even though she struggled and lost so much, she still persevered during the worst. Her use of imagery was very prominent throughout the book. I thought this quote would give a good example of that. Their voices clawed at my flesh. It felt as if I were lying on a bed of clump of burning coal, like I'd been set on fire. A sweeping wind of pain engulfed my body. 1,000 invisible needles ripped into me. This book is relevant to my life and speaks to me because it is an inspirational book about the power of the mind in conquering negative thoughts and ideas and emotions. In my personal life, I've definitely find myself falling into those kinds of negative patterns. But by reading this book, it has shown me that a little less distraction and a little more introspection can help me overcome those negative thoughts and habits. Um, I would rate this book 4.5 out of 5 for its extremely moving story as well as an inspirational outcome. Along with this book, it's also a movie, and it's called 91 Nights, about the genocide and Immaculate's time spent in the bathroom. Thank you.